so as we are meeting today, it is the time of year when the sun is in Virgo. Virgo season always kind of matches up with back to school, back to schedules, kind of getting things together, and it rules that ordinary life. Now, you can see in the sky here, though, as we speak, the planet Saturn is right across from the sun right now. Now, that does not happen every Virgo season. That is something that's uniquely happening now. And it's already stood across from the sun earlier, but it's retrograde. Saturn is retrograde. Anytime the planet Saturn comes into contact with anything in our chart, Saturn's like I don't know, it's kind of like a grumpy old guy. You know, he's father time, he's hard lessons, he's rules and restrictions. And you know, it's okay. We need rules, we need time, we need limitations, we need hard lessons sometimes. Sometimes we have to dedicate ourselves to learning something, and it's not easy. It takes discipline, it takes structure, and that's what Saturn represents. Well, when Saturn stands across from the sun is trying to illuminate and just be like its pure essence. And here comes Saturn, and especially Saturn in Pisces, because Saturn is in Pisces is kind of watery and uncertain and deep, and you know, has this kind of, I don't really, even though it's the planet that rules foundation, it's like I really can't tell where this coldness or heaviness, or why is it so hard? And I feel like everybody's feeling that right now. It's like this, gosh, you know, time has been such a thing. Right now, there's a little bit of heaviness, but it's hard to kind of know why. There's a little bit of this uncertainty, but it's hard to know why. And that's something we're kind of wading through this week. Another interesting energy that's coming up is that Mars, our planet of action and will and drive and youth and athleticism, but also war, anger. Mars just changed signs and went into the sign of Cancer. That just happened a couple days ago. And so that is also another layer of feeling that it's hard to get traction. It's Mars in Cancer doesn't like to be in Cancer, because Cancer is the sign of the nurturer and the mother and the home body. And you know, Cancer energy, when Mars is there, Mars is usually the warrior, right? He's hopping on the horse and going off to fight the next battle. And now instead it's like on the couch, you know, saying, you know, I think I'm just going to have more popcorn. And it brings in a little bit more sensitivity, and that can be good or not good, right? It can be lovely if you are tuned into your intuition. You may find it to be a little easier to meditate with all this water energy. You know, you might close your eyes and be like, wow, yeah, really feeling that. But then that sometimes also gives you a little difficulty in, you know, dealing with the day-to-day type of things. So, and we're really watching the Mars in Cancer. Why? Well, because it's going to be there a while. Mars is going to be in the sign of Cancer, just barely dip into Leo, and then come back, because it's going to retrograde at the end of year. So knowing where that is in your chart is really useful. So understanding where then the middle and late degrees of Cancer is in your chart, and where early Leo is, because it's going to be kind of digging up the material there for a long period of time and coming into a few tense aspects. Another interesting thing that's going on right now is there's big relationship karma. I mean, don't we all know like somebody who's like breaking up or getting together, or like there's a lot of relationship stuff going on. And there's multiple reasons for that. One, Venus is in the sign of partnership, Libra, where she loves to be. She's like, let's throw a party. Let's be social. I want to be in love. But yet, we've had the nodes of the moon going through Aries and Libra as well. And the south node's been in Libra, which has really been highlighting for almost a year now partnerships that are sacrificial, that aren't of the highest vibration. Partnerships where you feel like you're doing all the heavy lifting and they're not. Partnerships where you feel like they're unable to speak their truth, or you're unable to speak your truth in some way. And that those two symbols are going to be very pressured this month. And so it's kind of like they're going to be some hard conversations. And with Mars in that sensitive sign, we all have to be a little careful about blurting out our emotional feelings or engaging in emotional warfare. That's something that Mars in Cancer can do as well. Now, it is lovely to note that over the next couple of weeks, on the 11th, Mercury will be going direct. And when it does, it's also going to be picking up a really nice energy with Mars. And so it will be easier, I think, in some ways to have those hard conversations once we get past this week, you know. So if you've got something you got to bring up, you know, a big talk with the boss, you know, a sit down with the husband, whatever that is, next week might be a little bit more easeful for that. We are keeping an eye on the full moon for the month because it is quite volatile, and we'll get to that. That is on the 17th. So as you can see, these big, thick red lines are stressors, and that's Mars pushing on the node. And on the 17th, we have a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. Now, a full moon in Pisces is going to be pretty tender as it is. It's a full moon lunar eclipse. It's at 25 degrees of the sign of Pisces. A full moon is always when the sun is standing across from the moon. Okay, that's what illuminates it. But it also introduces that tension, the tension between the light and the dark, the light and the shadow, your day life and your inner life, right? And that's why full moons are always kind of emotional. When it occurs in the sign of Pisces, that makes it even more about the depths of yourself. Now, of course, you'll look at your own chart and say, where's Pisces for me? That can be useful to see because usually full moons bring some type of ending or completion, or like something kind of wraps up. It really shows you what you need to let go of. And this one is particularly intense because of the fact that it's an eclipse. So it's a lunar eclipse, and that makes the energy go way up. Now, eclipses always come in either 2s or 3s. So this is the first one we've had in Pisces for a long time. The next one is going to be a solar eclipse, and it's going to be in Libra. And that's the first week of October, on October the 2nd. That's another reason why relationships are being so pressured, because there will be an eclipse in Libra. But this eclipse in Pisces is really showing us what's going on beneath the surface of things. Because Saturn is in Pisces, because Neptune is in Pisces and so strong, there's all this kind of illusion and delusion. That's why there's so many, everybody's a conspiracy theorist now, you know. Everybody's like got this sense something's not quite right. I don't know everything that's going on. Why do I feel like there's something going on, right? I feel like that's a lot of people feel that way. And that's the glamorous, illusory nature of Neptune and Pisces, paired with the Saturnian force that says, you know, I want to figure this out. I want to understand what's going on. So with full moons, a lot of times we ritualize them with, let's say, cord cutting, like energetic cord cutting, or, you know, just letting go. I think full moons are, you know, sometimes call them burning moons, you know. They're the time that you like write a letter to your ex and set it on fire safely. It could be even someone who's passed over. You know, I need to wrap that up. I need closure on that. Full moons are great for that, but not necessarily eclipses, because the energy is so strong. One way to think about eclipses is just like if you're watering your garden with a little hose and the full moon, a lot of water's coming in, you know, the water's really coming out. Well, your hose becomes a fire hose during an eclipse. It's like water, water, oh, whoa, that's not what I meant to, that's not what I meant to happen. That's why the ancients even would track eclipses very carefully, because they noticed that sometimes really big events would happen. And in fact, often during eclipses, especially solar eclipses, they realized that it's often had something to do with solar figures like, you know, emperors or kings and things like that. With a lunar eclipse in Pisces, it could be that something we're emotionally attached to goes away. It could be that something that we realize that we've been doing that isn't good for us. It's force. Our hand is forced. We must stop. Another thing to remember about eclipse energy is that they are in play for long periods of time. And you can really look, you could study them in a more detailed way. But what I generally say is at least a day or two before and at least a week after. Another thing that's kind of interesting about the astrology right now is, and you don't have to be an astrologer to see it. You see this kind of fun looking, looks like a kite. It literally looks like a kite, blue lines. It's literally called a kite formation. And it is being created by the outer planets, creating this little tiny triangle. It's called a minor grand trine. These outer planets of Pluto and Uranus are in what we call a trine. A trine is flow, it's blessing, it's the two energies merging harmoniously. So you've got Uranus and Taurus, so that's going to blend nicely with Pluto in Capricorn, which is blending nicely with the sun also in Earth sign Virgo. All right, so that's what creates the triangle. So the sextiles are connecting these outer planets to Neptune. So all three of the outer planets are in this beautiful, harmonious connection. And they have been for a couple months and will be for a couple more months. Well, what does that even mean? It means that the whole world is changing and it's purposeful. There's meaning behind some of the big shifts that you can see in what's important to people. Shifts in money, shifts in power. All of these are pushing us to the next level. Is it always going to be comfortable and easeful? No. That's one of the funny things about astrology. You know, everyone's always like, is it good or is it bad? It's not like that. The future is going to be new. It's going to be different. It is preparing us for what comes next. Now, whether that's easy or not, a lot of it has to do with your attitude towards it. Some people are really all about change and feel comfortable and excited by it. Other people want to hide under the covers. You know, Pluto is a planet that is always difficult, even if it is positive, because it's the planet of death and regeneration. It's what makes the compost that we grow the sunflower in. It breaks things down that aren't working. And it is in the very, very last bits of being in Capricorn. It's already dipped into the next sign, which is Aquarius before. So we've had a couple glimpses of the future. But for this month and next, it is firmly in sign of Capricorn. Now, what it's really doing, I think of it as it first went into Capricorn in 2008. You can think about how much your life has changed since 2008, right? I mean, my goodness, that's a lot of change, right? Okay, but it's ushering you to the next step, which we get a taste of next year and we totally step into in 2026. And that is all the outer planets changing signs. It's pretty unusual for them to do that at the same time. And that's what makes it feel so big, right? You know, that's what makes it feel so big. And it's also because it is flowing harmoniously, but it's because it's pushing you so hard in these three areas because they're connecting, that it feels like you can't decide what part's changing faster. It's not just one thing, it's everything. And so it's key to slow down, to stay grounded. And I feel like that's the recommendation I give people always, is to slow down. If you find your mind is overactive during this time, do things that settle the mind. Now, don't distract the mind. That's what most people are doing. That's why, and that's because of both Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. When Neptune went into Pisces, it was 2012. And it's been so powerful since then in that sign because it rules that sign. And that is the time you can look at it. Drugs, alcohol, even just like, addictions of all kinds, whether it's, your CrossFit, lifting weights, or whether you're, sitting down and watching an entire season of a show, you're disappearing into things, right? So there's this sense of like wanting to escape. So, I would say as a general overview of the next couple weeks, definitely keep your eye on that eclipse. But otherwise, there's just that little bit of heavy lifting with that push-pull of Saturn across from the sun. And then feeling that difference between Mars going into that touchy-feely sign of Cancer. And then relationships, man. The relationship cycle relates back to what was happening in your life in late 2005 and early 2006. So that's like something to kind of think about. Think about what was going on in your life then. And that is wrapping up over these next few months. It's a time when substandard relationships just won't stick. They just don't, they're falling apart. And that could be more than just a marriage or something like that, but also work environments. Once that Mercury goes direct on September 11th, you will feel a certain amount of movement forward, because late October and November are some of the more difficult astrology of the year. Why? Well, because there's going to be an argument between Mars in Cancer and Pluto. And so Mars and Pluto are both the rulers of Scorpio energy. They're both all about fighting and decomposition and truth and aggression. And they're going to be standing across the sky from each other. The first time they do that, it will be from the sign of late Cancer to late Capricorn. So, because those signs are across the sky from each other. But then it will pivot from Leo to Aquarius. So Cancer Capricorn is this argument between home life and work life. There's this push-pull between rules and structure and emotions and tenderness. And then it will pivot to the push-pull between Leo and Aquarius energy. And Leo is the individual. Leo is the king. Leo is in charge. Leo is, the president or whatever. And Aquarius is the people. It's the masses. It's the environmentalists. It's the children who are saying, what are you doing to this planet that you're leaving to us, And that push-pull becomes more prominent once you get into late November and into January and February of next year. So it's going to be a little bit of a long dance. You're not going to be able to point at just one thing, but it will bring up argumentative energies. It will bring up sensitive energies where people are feeling hurt or feeling marginalized, and they're going to want to do something about it. And then that group dynamic of Pluto going into Aquarius will become more focused over the next couple years. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the American Revolution, the French Revolution. It brings revolutions. It brings massive changes in technology, which we caught a glimpse of, when it first went into Aquarius back in 2023. That was when all of a sudden all the alien stuff started come out. The United States started releasing things. People started talking more about what was going on there. Technology, AI became big. All of that is due to literally take off next spring. It's going to be very different. We are just barely touching the surface of some of these technological advances. In the same way that, our children wouldn't know what life would be like without phones. By the time our children are in their 20s and 30s, the world will be very different. And it's always a little bit harder at the front end when things start to shift and change. I would probably say one of the best ways to manage some of this energy is to maintain your humanity and your interpersonal connections, because it would be easy to end up in a virtual world with fake friends, fake everything. And it will be easy to use fear to manipulate people, especially when we get into next year. Okay, it's going to be easier to control people through fear-based responses. It will be easier to set boundaries around those things starting next year, partially because both Saturn and Neptune will be going into the sign of Aries, but they'll be dancing back and forth. So there'll be this kind of, yes, easier in some ways, but harder in others, kind of pivot back and forth. But I do think it's essential that we don't lose our own ability to concentrate and discern